So when we started the show, I was like, it was called Bring It In. We're all worried about the pandemic and the COVID and the quarantine, and maybe my internet access is bad. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. It's not great, but I hear you.
I think you. Okay, apologize for that. So I legit, when we started this, I was legit worried. I was like, we might have symptoms. Like we might get the coronavirus during the course of the show. And then what do we do? How do we, like, that's going to be emotionally kind of fraught, right? Like, do we cancel the show, whatever? And now it's over. I'm happy to tell you it happened. I had freaking coronavirus the last 4 shows we had here. I'm in the attic where I've been living, and now we're all better. I'm out of quarantine. We could talk about this more or less as you want, but it hit our house fairly hard. It was stressful, but it's over now. And I can tell you that the end result of that is I went to Home Depot yesterday, my first day out of quarantine. And David, I'm like, no one's ever been happier in Home Depot than I was. Like, I'm getting paints mixed, and I'm making like best friends for life with the people who work there.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing the difference. There's like with good reason, we all live with anxiety these days. But I'm like, I'm still wearing the mask. I'm still following the protocols. But now I'm not thinking I'm going to die from anything that happens at the paint department of Home Depot.
Right.
Like, which is, I'm telling you, you're going to get vaccines. You're going to be amazed at how much better life is when you don't carry a pandemic on your shoulders everywhere you go. Now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to wear the mask, but like, I'm not actually worried anymore. And that's amazing.
Right. Well, if you remember, we published something months and months and months ago where I talked about picturing what the end of this pandemic, it feels like. And I think we even put up a video of like the end of World War II, where people are just, packing the streets and celebrating. It's not going to happen that way because it's going to be a much more, a step-by-step process. But ultimately, it's a huge weight off people's shoulders. I was just telling Judy this week, we're going to see my son. I haven't seen my son since August. We're driving to Tallahassee, but we got to protect him. He's got a team to worry about. He doesn't want to infect his team. We don't want to shut down their season. So we've got a double mask everywhere. We got a hotel next to his apartment, so we never have to share a car with him. We will never be in a car with him. We have a balcony outside in our room, so we can hang on the big balcony. They have a rooftop bar. It's going to be freezing cold. We're going to sit 6 feet apart. There's a fire pit on the bar. We're hoping to open Christmas Eve, but we have to do all these things. I just want to hug and kiss my son and see his sister and his mom do the same thing, but we can't. We have to be mindful of his teammates and everything else. And it stinks, but it is what it is. And we can't wait to be over with this.
I think it was me. I'm surprised at how much better every minute is. Like, I'm surprised that I think it was sort of uncounted, the psychological toll of just like shit, like every little thing, everyone who leans a little close, everyone who doesn't follow the grocery store's one-way aisles, like all that just weighs on your sense of survival.
Right.
And like, that's a big one. Like and now I'm like, yeah, I know it's great. Like but if there's some dangerous thing that has to be done, I tell Judy, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like we need something from a hospital or a nursing home. Like, yeah, I got you.
Right. You're good now.
No problem.
Right. Yeah. I've mastered the reverse walking like never before. We went to a bourbon tasting in my neighborhood, all outdoors, huge space, but still, and I think I have neighbors that aren't as mindful as I am of the whole thing for different reasons. And my wife and I, we are buddies, we're partners. Wherever I was, she was, and vice versa. And as people move forward, we're moving backwards, and we're getting in between, letting tables be between us, trees, stumps, whatever, fire, just to be sure we're not swapping air, which is what I literally thought about nonstop from Zach. Is we're just not trying to swap air with anybody.
That's a great, I thought about swapping air several times. Yeah, that's the phrase. That's what we needed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the message.
Okay. So the preseason is over. The NBA season is almost upon us.
Tomorrow.
We're just looking at, you can't, on the one hand, you can't learn anything in the preseason. It's all kind of garbage. But that's not totally true. You can look a little bit. So I just looked up, like, in the NBA.com's weird stats here, just basically sorted for per 48 minutes, who was most efficient. And this is the list. What do you see here that gets your attention?
John Morant, pretty good. He played 4 games. Pelicans only played 2 games. Durant played 2 games, and he did well. Zion up there being good. Terry Rozier, Dalen Horton-Tucker. There's a player that I think you've heard of. I think you probably have written about him. We like to call him Steph. Yeah. He did pretty good. Mitchell Robinson did well. Randy, pat yourself on the back for that. But who's the highest rated rookie? The Spurs, Devin Vassell, who we're very high on. And Ben Simmons on the list, Montrezl Harrell, which is really good for the Lakers. I think that it's mostly players we expected. Lonzo played well. I'm looking as we scroll down the list. Judy's scrolling down the list some. But I don't think anyone should worry about their best player on their team who hasn't done so much so far. It's a long season, first of all, even though it is a little bit compacted. And preseason, no one's throwing any good stuff out offensively. It's all pretty much basic stuff. I think we know who's going to play well, mostly. There'll be some surprises both ways, good and bad. And that's what the season's all about every year.
I thought it was kind of cool. Those best players in the preseason are mostly very young, which you like if you're Adam Silver, right? John Morant, Domantas was pretty young. Thomas Bryant was way up there.
Yeah. He's a very talented. I told you, he's Mo Spates. Offensively, he's Mo Spates. He's Mr. Bucket. Yeah. I'll have to see if he can guard because they really need some help defensively inside. And that's not been something we've seen from him. If he breaks out as an average defender, they're going to have a sick offense. I'm a huge Denny Avdia fan. Avdia did great. Bradley Beal's very good. Russell Westbrook played well in the one game. And we think he's going to play really hard and all of that. Bryant being a plus for them on offense and then neutral on defense is a big win for the Wizards. That could happen.
All right, so LaMelo Ball's the talk of the league. So much excitement around his highlights. Here we go. Nick Young. That's a big. Okay. All right, Nick.
Yeah. Tone it down. As Larry David would say, let's curb your enthusiasm there.
Okay, now this is a pretty good highlight though. I do like this.
This is the long look. He does a long one-handed swooping leading bounce pass for a layup. It's a nice play, but the NBA writes LaMelo makes it look easy. That's not easy. That sets my hair on fire because it's not easy. I agree with them. It does not look easy to anyone that actually understands the game. And there was no need to make, I thought there was much easier plays to make. When you make an easy play hard, that's tragedy. That's turnover all over the place. It's a hell of a pass. Wouldn't recommend it. If you watch LaMelo's turnovers, almost always they are very easily avoidable. The good news is, and this is from a very strong LaMelo skeptic, as you know, I could love him as a player. He played so hard. He can't beat you off the dribble yet. He needs a ball screen. He ain't the first guard that can't beat guys off the dribble, although most guys can. He needs help with that, but a ball screen's legal in the NBA, and illegal screens are pretty much legal. So he can get by people with the screen. He rebounds his ass off. He hustled. All these are things he wasn't doing as much in Australia. He can't shoot. That is nothing's fixed there. He can't finish either. And he doesn't yet care, in my opinion, about making the easy play that wins. He wants to look cool. If he could solve just the second part, he's Lonzo Ball. Not as good at defense as Lonzo Ball. Hello, they're brothers. He's very similar to his brother. It took me a second to make the connection. They're brothers, and he played like Lonzo, and that'd be fine. Lonzo had a great preseason. Pass first, run your offense, take care of your better players, hustle on defense, even if you're not a good defensive player. Hustling counts for something. But Lonzo doesn't make those plays. Lonzo makes easy plays, and he's a grown-up. If LaMelo would grow up, the Hornets have himself a nice player. I'm not sure he's worth number 3. He's a nice player. I just don't trust that he'll grow up. We'll see. This is what the season will unfold on.
This is and Tom Ziller, who's a friend and a really good writer.
Good guy. Yeah, I love Tom.
He wrote a column, a Substack email this morning, basically saying, like, he talks about stealing joy. He's like, LaMelo does things that are absolutely joyous. And as once did Jason Williams, White Chocolate.
Yep.
And why does everybody have to throw a bunch of advanced stats at him and take the joy out of it? And like, in a way, I feel absolutely like fine, right? Like it is like, this is a joyous thing, and it sort of gets to exist just in that little bubble. That's fine. What I would say though, it struck me, it was like, I don't know if, I think it is important to measure the degree to which this is hurting his team, right? And for that, I'd bring up Terry Rozier. So Terry Rozier is a very different player, the guy whose job LaMelo is taking, right? And yeah, and so here you can compare them various ways, but if you scroll a little more.
Is this per 100 possessions? Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so I made this, oh gosh darn it, NBA.com. So I made it custom with a bunch of other stats, but then you can't see it. But you can just see here, you start right there, LaMelo's minus 8.5 in the preseason per 100 possessions. Terry Rozier is plus 17.6. So I am not telling you this is an accurate measure of everything they contributed, but I'm telling you that if somebody's this much better in plus minus, playing with the same teammates, then one guy's way better than the other one. Not by this degree, but I think that if LaMelo is going to be a really impactful player, then we're saying he's doing big things that make highlights and little things that are hard to measure. I'm like, well, if you measure them at all, if you attempt to measure them in any way, the things that David says LaMelo needs to work on, then he's way behind, right? And at some point, I think I would say to Tom Ziller, tell it to Terry Rozier. Because when Terry sits for LaMelo and Nick Young says that it's Melo's league now, like Terry's like, I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff he can't do. A whole bunch. Like Kyle Lowry stuff and whatever. And not like Terry Rozier's like the greatest player ever, but in raw plus minus, LaMelo's 330th best player in the preseason. I think that plus minus needs to be somewhere in how we analyze players. Doesn't need to be in just the preseason. It's a little bit cheaty of me to do it with such a small sample, but I think if you ignore plus minus entirely, you can get pretty lost in the weeds of what matters in basketball.
Well, if LaMelo hustled like this in Australia, I would have felt better about him and said he's just got to learn how to shoot and finish, because he can't do either. And it'd be nicer to work on his quickness in terms of small spaces, beat people off the dribble, and try on defense more. And he's a nice player, top 5, top 10. It wasn't a great draft. I just have never seen, and I still haven't seen him place us over me beyond the cool assists, which is still a me thing, right? If you just I'm telling you, Henry, I could love him. He made a number of quick hit aheads, forwards, skip passes quickly. Love that. We don't see enough of that. He just can't shoot, and that's a problem. And then he has to make easy passes hard. That's a problem for me. But those are correctable, and most players grow up. I've told the story on the show about Skip to Malou, when Udonis said, dude, throw me the lob. He's like, no, I ain't throwing any lob, especially to 6'7" power forward. Like, I'm not taking any chance for turnovers, or Stan McGunny won't play me. Like, LaMelo needs to be coached harshly on that. James Borrego, who I think is a good coach, needs to coach him up hard and say, it only matters how we do collectively, not how many viral videos you have on Instagram. If that all comes, he's a good player in potentially anyway, but we'll have to see. I just have to see if he buys into that. I don't know.
Well, and I don't know, like young offensive minded players, new to the league, rookies, like who have the ball a lot, never help their team win. Like basically Kevin Durant did and Derrick Rose didn't, and on. Like we used to think Kevin Durant and Derrick Rose were like doomed because their plus minus numbers were so bad. But then no, it just takes a while. It'll take LaMelo. Yeah. That's fine. And I think actually, David, you said something to me years ago that matters a lot still, where we're talking about saving the ball out of bounds when you're falling out of bounds or whatever. And my middle school coach was basically like, if you save the ball under your own basket, like I think he said he was gonna like ship us to Siberia and we would die there. Like it's basically his take. Yeah. You said, do you remember what you said to me?
I probably said, make a play.
Make a play.
Yeah.
Make a play. And so to me, like, I think this is at this level of the game, like practice making a play, which means screwing up making a play sometimes, which is how you get really, really good.
Right.
So that to me, like LaMelo's going to make a play in a bunch of situations, and maybe it comes together. But to me, like if it comes together in plus minus, which I think is the point here. Who made the good point about Steph?
Yeah, David did.
Like, yeah, Steph made a crazy play, but you put it all together. This team is like a rocket ship to the moon with how much they outscore people when he's out there making his plays, right? So yeah, one here or there, okay, but I think the problem with LaMelo here is it's a lot of plays are sketchy.
Right. Well, including and again, all of it's magnified when you can't shoot or score efficiently. The make a play thing also includes on it the risk minimization, right? You have to as you're factoring in how you're making that play, you have to factor in what would be the worst thing I could possibly do. So, for example, you don't save the ball under your own basket with a pass to the bad guys at the basket they're shooting on. Throw it to the side, throw it to the corner, throw it way down to half court. Don't give them assists for a dunk. That's all part of making that play that veterans understand. I would think people like Jordan could say to him, or heck, Mitch Kupchak could say it. He played NBA. We just need the bucket. If you have to look away, I've said this before on the show, if you have to look away to get us the bucket, look away. Unless there's an easy play to make, we have to look away. But if you don't have to look away, don't make sure of the pass. This is where I talk to players about being greedy. I may one day write about this, Henry. Being greedy is such a big factor in sports. When you can pour it fucking on. And so what you don't want is be on a 10-0 run and about to really break things open, and then you make a stupid ass play that gets them an easy dunk and all the momentum is gone. The game is all about those differences, those margins where you go in a 10-0 run, 12-0. And not many teams lose games with 15-0 runs. Don't be the guy that gives them a dunk to end an 8-0, 10-0 run because you want to look cool. That's a killer. And so you've got to coach. That's not being greedy. That's being selfish. So being greedy is I'm going to keep you an easy shot, huh?
If you get that, like 34-7 run or whatever, then you take the starters out and they're better next game.
Yeah.
Right?
It has so many long-term impacts. Right. I think there's remind me, editor. I think there's a story here when I was helping a baseball team where that was our be greedy, 2 words, be greedy. When we were up 4 in the first, let's not pull our starting pitcher out to save. No, let's end the game early with a mercy rule. Like we had all these things we did and it worked. We won the championship. We were greedy as hell. We were knocking teams out in the first inning. There's a strategy to that. And so I think LaMelo can get all these things. And ironically, maybe you could say that by being less worried about style now and more worried about winning, his brand explodes. Otherwise, it's just for show, right? All of our best sneaker guys win. Are the guys that are the brand names for the – Anthony Davis didn't go down this year because he scored less points. They won the championship. He's never had more leverage, right? More stardom, win. And they're a long way from that in Charlotte, by the way, which makes it interesting. Are they going to trade Terry Rozier? I didn't even include him if we talk trades. He's good. He's a good player. The Celtics could use him, actually.
Boston would like him back for sure. Sure.
That's ironic. They could use another guard. But if he's going to back up someone, better to back up Kemba than LaMelo, because at least he'll be backing up on a winner, right? But, yeah, that's where he's just got to grow up. I'm rooting for him. I'm not, I'll be pragmatic as hell. I won't feel like I was wrong to trash him. I saw what I saw. He's got to grow up. He might. We'll see. Marcus Cousins grew up. Let's see what he does.
Yep. Okay, you want to talk about Tom Gores?
Who? Oh, yeah. No, I want you to talk about him.
Oh, you do?
Ownership is your bailiwick, my man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't know much about this other than I know that when they were looking at who's profiting from locking up a lot of people, Tom Gores, whose company invests in a bunch of different things, but does own the company that overcharges you when you want to make phone calls in and out of prison.
Yeah. So this is ESPN, I think, has an article about as an activist saying that he's got to sell the team. He owns the Pistons. He has to sell the team. So tell me what you think about that. Like that's not going to go away.
No. And that one's not new. I think that we have it in our heads that the condition of working in the NBA is to work for a nut job billionaire, right? And we just were very accepting of James Dolan's friends with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, right? And we're just like, yeah, that's how it is, because every team's kind of like that. But maybe we are too accepting, right? Like maybe it's a little too much. And I definitely don't think, I mean, come on, like how can you, a fair number of billionaires invest retirement funds for police unions, where those police unions are among the craziest, racist, right-wing nut jobs out there, right? So they're literally in business together. That's how you become an NBA billionaire, and part is managing those pension funds. That's awkward, right? And then this is another example. I guess I just feel like, let's not let a few PSAs or these charitable donations delude us from the bigger picture, right? Like I don't think some virtue signaling, right? Actually, I'll tell you, you talk about a story you want to write in the future. A story that I definitely want to write in the future is about charity. Obviously, charity is great, but I'm noticing how charity works in social media, where somebody does something charitable, and then everyone in the room says, "Oh, what a good person." Yeah. Right? It's like, no. That's a person about whom we know nothing, except they did one charitable thing, and they might be terrible. And yeah, it's easy to say. And so I feel like what we want is a system where everybody's okay, right? We want giant numbers that start with a B, billions of people to be saved from the worst, harshness of economic distress or disease, etc. Right? Well, some of these NBA billionaires are part of weakening the system for everyone, and then they throw you a bone here or there with like, I did some charity. It's like, that's not good enough. That's not doing it for me. I'm not impressed. Like, you're a billionaire, and you're profiting off breaking the system that keeps everybody okay. Like, you got to do a lot more than write one check to impress me.
Yeah. So, I will tell you that one of the more disappointing moments of my life in terms of my own self-awareness was when I realized and I don't want to get too political, but I have no choice here. And you led me into this, damn it. When I was a Republican when I first graduated college, because my dad told me I should be, and he's not, and hasn't been for a long time. But when I realized what the idea of small government was all about, I didn't know this. I was a stupid kid. When you are in power structure, in America, the only way you can have your power limited, restricted, is laws and regulations. And who does that? Big government, right? So by declaring war on government and media, which is the only other way potentially you might get infringed a little bit and might be reminded of things, is when media goes after you. When you take away those two things, it's not because you think it's better for the average American. It's because you don't want anyone keeping you from making as much money, gaining as much power as you possibly can. Literally, it's attacking the only people that can enforce laws or make laws that keep you from doing that. That's why they do it. And when that hit me, I immediately pulled out of that party. And it was a very sad realization that I was so unaware of this very, very simple concept. We can get richer by cheating more. And when I say cheating, I mean standards of how you fertilize food and everything else you can imagine, by going after the powers that can keep me from doing that. And so what people like Tom Gores apparently have done, and maybe he's got really good personal motivations why he wants on an NBA team. I have no idea about that. But I do know that this is just another way to game a system where I can continue to do things that I should not be doing, legal or illegally. That's a separate thing. There's an ethics. We have ethics for a reason. I can get away with it by owning this team and doing these Christmas drives and all these other things. And they're all well and good, but they're also manipulative, right? And so I think we could agree that if Adam Silver was really able to run the NBA the way he wanted to, we would not be dealing with stuff like this in the NBA anymore. We would be better at choosing who the owners are to avoid these kinds of things. That's why I said to you initially, it's not going away. And people like you as a writer won't let it go away.
I mean, there are people who have the job of screening owners, right?
Yeah.
and digging into their finances and seeing up to it, and Adam Silver's raised his hand, right, by kicking an owner out. Very unusual. So to me, I'm like, wow, are we good enough? Are we did we do a good job here? It certainly seems now like we're taking the position that, with valuations over $2 billion, there's a very short list of people who can even shop. Which means you just get who you get, right? Let's not pretend we're actually like, oh, these are the good ones. Like, no, you just get who you get now. Like at these prices. And they also, like, you'd say, oh, well, maybe you could build like a coalition to buy a team, but they don't want that. It's been very messy where that's happened. Like in the scenes, they complain a lot about the Bucks owners don't get along great. And they're kind of, there have been a few of these 50-50 deals, and
Memphis.
The move is to have Steve Ballmer's, right? And there just aren't very many that rich, right? Where you have $2 billion, $3 billion, $4 billion disposable,
right?
Remain stable after you write that check, like.
Right. It's going to be a topic we're discuss all year, I think. Not just with the Pistons and not just with you, but I think that one of the best parts about BLM is there's going to be eyeballs. The NBA doesn't have the eyeballs that you just were describing, the people screening. So we have to do that. The media has to do that. Movements like BLM have to do that and continue to bring awareness to it. Remember, Josh Harris, I'm not suggesting any of this, by the way, but Josh Harris fired Sam Hinkie apparently because his kids were being threatened at school because their team sucked. Like, that's all it took. Well, we can apply lots of pressures without getting any child afraid of anything, of course. When owners feel like, okay, instead of just find the GM, I'm just going to sell the team. Like, that can happen. They can go invest in another business. It doesn't have to be this business. And so we need to be vocal about our concerns.
And it's not like, I don't know that it's set in stone that teams have to be owned this way, right? The Green Bay Packers aren't. Right. I don't know, but I think that what's the alternative probably we need to explore, because if valuations keep going up, we're going to be out of people who can. We're just going to have to. It's going to have to be like those. The four big companies, Silicon Valley, will have to spawn the people who own all of them.
Yeah,
that's going to be weird.
That's not. Yeah, that's not great. And the other question is, I don't know if valuations will keep going up. This goes back to something you've always said, and that's why I think this season's really interesting. One of many is what's the product going to be? Because with the product will dictate what the consumer looks like. Literally what they look like, and how old they are, and how often are they in interacting with the product, right? And so if we aren't careful as a group of NBA fans and people involved like we are, we're going to lose an audience, and therefore valuations go down. We don't want that. And so having owners like this probably isn't helpful.
Yeah. Well, and it looks like right now the product's going to be gambling. Right, that's going to be the big money-making product of the next 5-10 years, and then
for sure,
well, a lot of these current billionaires own casinos and sports books, and okay, so that's what you get. That's you're going to get everything that comes with that. Good luck.
Right. Good luck. All right, back to basketball.
Okay, back to basketball. David, you are wondering if Andrew Wiggins is already at his peak.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just me. This is the question of Golden State. How do they become relevant again? To your article, when we talked about best players ever, and Steph's on your list. He's near the top 5 on mine. He's on yours, and it's a fair argument. He's incredible, but he can't do it by himself. We know that. And so Kelly Oubre is really important. Draymond Green, super important. James Weissman's growth, not just for this year, but for that window with Curry, super important. Andrew Wiggins is today. There's no future for Andrew Wiggins that the Warriors care about. It's today. And I don't know. This is we'll find out the value of culture more than ever before. The value of Steph Curry more than ever before, I think, is Andrew Wiggins. We don't know until the regular season starts. Can he be a plus defender? Should be. Can he be one of the guys who leads the league in fast break points? He should be. Right? Can he score efficiently? Yes. Can he raise his production and his efficiency? We'll see. These are big questions. And if the answers are no to any of those things, the Warriors ceiling drops significantly, and he becomes a trade guy that maybe isn't. I mean, it seems like there's always someone to take a trade, but for them to trade Wiggins, they're going to have to include a good asset, a good player, or an asset. And that's scary for the Warriors. They didn't trade to get Wiggins to do that. They don't have to include, it won't be Weissman, but some talented young player like a Pascal or a pick in the future to dump his contract. That would be disastrous for the Warriors. Instead, if he can really play and he'll suddenly become this borderline all-star, even that he should have been, they're a much more interesting team because they'll win a lot more games.
I watched it. I just sometimes do that thing where I just watch one player for a while, and I did watch Andrew Wiggins for, I don't know, like a quarter and a half. And I was heartbroken.
Really? I have not done that yet.
He does a lot of, I mean, for a guy, well, I've read you and I'm a little bit pre-brainwashed. Like, okay, it's go time, Andrew. Like jump on the floor, get horizontal, just do everything. Use your Olympic genes and just fly everywhere.
Right.
And there are more than every other player on the court. There were on the Warriors. He was just jogging, drifting. I'm amazed at how. Okay, here's what I thought about. You told me years ago. I thought this was brilliant. That Gerald Green, back then he was like the greatest dunker, in dunk contests, but he almost never dunked in games. And you were pointing out that he didn't recognize situations to dunk. He couldn't read the moment. I feel like Andrew Wiggins is like that on defense, where he has the athleticism to do amazing things, but he doesn't recognize it. He's just kind of like another guy out there. And I just felt like, look, maybe preseason.
Right.
Different.
That's the only out. His only out is, like you said at the start of this, there's a lot of young players on the list. He ain't young anymore. Okay. If he's just preseason, let me save it. None of us will care. But we have this conversation January 5th, and the Warriors, whatever the record is, if he isn't doing a lot, that's a 5-alarm fire. Like, okay, he's still not turning it on. And he never has consistently. We'll see. Curry and Green will be on his ass, I'm sure. They need him. I like what Oubre looks like for them. They need him to well, you said, I say get parallel. You say get horizontal. Same thing. Dive, race, all these athletic things that he has Olympic genes for. Do it. Yeah. And then let Curry do his thing, because Curry had a great preseason.
I feel like he's when you're new somewhere, not that he's not that new anymore, but and you just don't want to make mistakes, and so you're timid. I'm like he looked to me like he doesn't want to make mistakes, and I'm like, just make 100 mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is where I would credit LaMelo. Would just do stuff, right? For an Andrew's case, just go do a bunch of stuff. You're not going to be around long if you don't.
No. It's the Canadians are unfailingly kind and polite. I mean, it's obviously just Floridians are used to Canadians. They come in droves. You can imagine every winter. We love them. We see them at the beach every day in the winter, but we need him not to be so unfailingly kind and polite, right? We need him to be a little bit. We need a little schmuck in him, as my Yiddish great grandfather would say. He needs to be a little bit of a prick. Like they need that. They like a little Draymond. Right? No Warriors fan is at all worried about defending Draymond when he's kind of a schmuck. Okay? Yeah. If Wiggins has some of that, woo boy, because he's got everything else. He's skilled too. He's not the ball handler he needs to be, but they got Curry. It makes it so much easier for everybody. People in preseason were freaking out about Curry on ball screens. Like if you're screening for ball screens away from the ball, if you're screening for Curry, everyone's open, except for sometimes Curry, because they're like, Curry, woo! You run outside and people get layups and dunks and threes. Like, man, you can really make a living off just being off Curry, but you got to be engaged fully. Yeah.
Okay. The word is James Harden might be traded. David, are you aware of this?
Yeah, I've read a couple comments here and there. I've seen it on Twitter. Right? No clue.
You have.
I can't
believe it doesn't matter where he goes.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you think Daryl Morey might trade Ben Simmons for James Harden?
I think it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your answer is smart. I would be, what a mistake that would be, I think. I really do. I really think it's a big mistake. But Daryl's super smart. If he did it, maybe I'm stupid then. But if I was Houston, I'd be thrilled. Get Ben Simmons. I can't believe anyone would trade. Like, you've got a 5, 6, 7-year window of success with Embiid and Simmons. And you could always trade one of those guys. I get it. But your window with Harden shrinks. Maybe it goes up a tiny bit in the short term. Maybe. He's never made it to the finals before. Not much like, he has one time, but not as the best player on the team. I think Houston's going to try to make a trade. I wrote a couple weeks ago about Orlando. Cole Anthony had a great preseason. Markelle Fultz looks really good. Like, the Rockets get a few. Fultz is 22. The Rockets get now and later and picks and cap relief and Aaron Gordon. That's a now guy too. And the Magic become an 8th seed contender, which right now they're barely on the outside looking in on that. And then they get Jonathan Isaac back next year, maybe, hopefully. I'm not saying it'll happen. I know Houston thinks they're going to get a Ben Simmons type. I have my doubts that someone's going to give them an all-star level player. I have my doubts.
I think so. The base level analysis is that these max players like James Harden are capped. Their salaries are capped, so they can't be paid what they're worth. And you do need some of those guys.
Yeah.
It comes down though a little bit, right? His salary goes up and his age goes up too, and his his productivity is going to go down. He's also he's at the age where people hit position really slow down and sometimes hit a cliff,
right?
And he's never been the king of fitness, which doesn't really matter now. He seems to be able to. I think about all the time was in the lockout when who was it? Boris Diaw. There were pickup games in Phoenix, and they're like, "Who's playing well?" And like, "Oh, Boris, fat and killed everybody." Fat and killed everybody. but so he can play fine now. But this deal, like the end of this deal, is going to get much more expensive, and at some point he's hurt or out or can't do it anymore and in decline. Like, that's just math, and it's harsh. But like, the idea that he's just a great value is true today, and I don't know how long for, but I feel like the next people to pay James Harden will be the ones who get the worst value. They won't be the same value the Rockets got.
Well, and he could leave in 2 years.
Yeah,
he could leave in 2 years, and likely will. To think that you're going to be able to keep him for any reason, it's just silly. It doesn't mean you can't. It's just something you can't expect. The guy can do whatever he wants to do in 2 years, and there's so many variables involved in that, and variables you can't even predict now because they're 2 years from now, or a year and a half from now. So that's why trading a bona fide all-star now, I see as such a mistake. Trading a guy like Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz, who, let's face it, they could be all-stars one day. I don't know if you project it or not, but it's certainly possible. More than just, you can't just say it's unlikely. There's an average chance one of those two guys becomes an all-star. They're really talented players. Cole Anthony looks like we thought he would look like when he got to Carolina. Like, he looked like a 25-year-old pro.
Yeah.
And he's a kid. He's a teenager.
I don't think Rockets fans are ready for like that being the return. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not. I'm sure they're not. But you know what? And I've said this before. When I was talking on the phone with Asai a ton during the Carmelo days of trading, I'm a big believer in you look long term. You can't just look at today. And then he was brilliant when the Masai did the trade for Gallinari and a ton of guys for Carmelo. And then Masai gets on the press conference and says, "We got killed today." And I just thought that's a genius move. But it's not right. It's not right. And had Masai stayed in Denver, he left after they had a phenomenal season, and he went to Toronto, and it was obviously great for him. But Denver loaded up with talent in that deal. And it did not look that way on draft day, but it was the case. And it was all those guys were a big part of why Denver was a top 3 seed and one of the best teams in the league in the second part of that year. Then they fired George Karl, Masai left, and the rest is history. But you can't worry about what it looks like today. It's a move down the road. And remember, if you start breaking up the Rockets, whoever you don't deal in the Harden deal can be part of other deals to collect more future talent. Eric Gordon looks good.
Yeah.
Someone's going to want him and give you something of value 2-3 years down the road. Right? There's a number of guys like that. So I do think that that Houston should be taking that approach, but I have no idea what they're going to
do. All right. We got a question there about Rudy Gobert's big deal. We should talk about that. What do you think?
Yeah, it's in our notes too.
Yeah.
So a couple things. I think it ends any discussion of blowback from the whole COVID story. We all remember how the pandemic began for sports fans with Rudy Gobert testing positive that night in Oklahoma City, and touching microphones, and Donovan Mitchell got it, and people thought there was a big fight between them, and now the Rockets have extended him with a monster deal. So whatever happens going forward, let's never talk about what happened in March as it relates to the Jazz, because it doesn't matter. They look great in the preseason, by the way. I think that he's really good. He's really good. They developed him. He had no offensive game. This is the best center in the league, probably, as we use centers, right? Embiid has a different argument, which I'm going to talk about Embiid later, I think. Great pick and roll finisher, leads the league in dunks every year with Giannis, Rudy Gobert and Giannis, the two guys that dunk the most. Defensive anchor. I think that we've got people downplaying centers, and yet here's the Jazz paying this guy. The Jazz are a smart team. And I think that he fits well. I look at it this way. If you can, I wrote this on Twitter a little bit. If you can have the best shooting team in the league and you take the most threes in the league, what's left? Defense. And if Rudy is your rim protector, and in their case, Derek Favors is their backup, well, that's a team that can beat LA. LA's 4 games in 7. They might have 3 games where they shoot lights out and take 52, 53 threes a game and make 28 of them. Like, you're not beating them those nights. And then it just takes one bad night for you the other end. You can't score, and they beat you in the series. The Jazz are a real dark horse, in my opinion, a real surprise team that can make the finals out of the West because Rudy's their center, and they now are taking threes like the Rockets do.
Yeah.
And I think that combination works. I think Dennis Lindsey, who I don't know, but I think he's done a hell of a job building out a roster that can compete with LA teams without that talent at the top end. Their 2 best players are Donovan and Rudy. Those guys don't touch Davis, LeBron, right? Giannis, Holiday, or Middleton, and Butler, whoever, right? Think of the other dynamic duos, Kawhi, Paul George, of course, but they can beat them in the aggregate with their style. But Rudy has to be part of that, or they can't defend well enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. I to me, like, there's this unknowable thing, which is, well, I hope they like each other again. Like, I do believe in this, like, power of love, right? And if they're gonna kill each other, kill for each other, right? If they're gonna play really hard, they did not get along in March, right? If they're getting along now, great. I hope I hope they really had those conversations, and I hope they're really ready to go to war together. Because if not, this is a mistake. If not, they're going to be trading Rudy at some point, right? And
right, my people there say that that's exactly what's happened. That we'll talk it out. We can't avoid this. So I rarely look at the chat. Bilal just had the single funniest line in chat history, in my opinion. He just took the vaccine. We know Dr. Ladak is a physician over there. He got the vaccine. So they asked how it was, how to go, and he said, same as others. But I have this desire to buy Microsoft products.
Just go with it, Bilal. Go with it. No question.
That's the best. Absolute best.
Fine.
Yeah. Right. Meanwhile, if that inspires Apple to start funding research and get vaccines too, we're all the better for it.
Oh my gosh. No, thank you.
That's great. Yeah, right. That's great stuff. Very good. So anyway, just to finish on the Jazz, I think GMs who have a short-term, medium-term, long-term vision of what their team's going to look like, and then adjust it. A year ago, they were not shooting threes like this. They got Bojan Bogdanovic. He's good. 20 points a game last year. Did not play. They took the Nuggets to 7 games without Bogdanovic. So that's important. They got him back. He looks very healthy and very good. And so they've got this this mix of shooters, and now they've doubled down on them. Remember, they added Bogdanovic in part because they wanted more shooting. They had kept losing the Rockets because they couldn't shoot straight. They had Rubio, couldn't shoot. Well, now they added Mike Conley for the same reason, shooting. Well, now they've got all these shooters, and they're shooting more threes than they ever did before, starting in the bubble, right? They clearly made some kind of decision during the pandemic break about shooting more threes. They're doing it. They're doing it in the preseason. I mean, they're jacking up threes all over the place and making them. And they've got shooters off the bench, Jordan Clarkson, George Niang. These guys can really shoot the ball. And all of us, and Derek Favors now is a backup, not Tony Bradley, where when Rudy's out, they've got an elite defender, and he's a different kind of defender, but he's an elite defender. I'm telling you, the Rockets were scary, not just because of James Harden a couple years ago. They took so many threes, and if they ever got hot, you were screwed. That's who the Jazz are now, but Rudy's back there, not Clint Capella. They're a hell of a team. They're going to be right there. I'm telling you, they're going to be right there if they stay healthy because of what Dennis has built, and Rudy's a big key to that.
Every time I watch that team, I just see Joe Ingles. I just feel like it's like he's like he almost glows. He's so white, but I'm just like Joe Ingles is doing stuff all over the court.
Yeah, and Joe. See, this is. I mean, Royce O'Neal starts for them. I'm not a big Royce O'Neal fan. Other people are. He serves a purpose. I don't think he's as good a defender as people think. He's fine. He's a good shooter for sure. He's an athlete, and they need that. Joe Ingles did not play well in large parts last year, and they need him to. Yeah. Because he's a playmaking wing with the second unit that for a while last year, Ingles, actually even Tony Bradley, Moutier came in. He's gone now. And Niang and Clarkson destroyed people in the second unit. Well, when your starters are really good and your second unit's really good, guess what? You're really fucking good. Yeah. So Portland's got a hell of a team. Denver's super deep, maybe the deepest team. Like the West is so loaded because none of those teams are going to finish top two. It's going to be and the Warriors we can't forget about. So, but I like what Utah did.
We have so many more topics to get to. Then it's 11:47. So really fast. Wow. I did a little math. Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, Danny Green, Avery Bradley, by the maligned advanced stat of win shares, which does the handy thing of attempting to add up how many wins they brought the team. Those four guys the Lakers lost brought the team 15 wins in the regular season, according to that math. Maybe it's 7, maybe it's 30. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. But the point is they were good in the regular season. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, they don't do key things in the playoffs. Avery Bradley wasn't even there. And I'd say, okay, fine. But they have to get to the playoffs. They have to get through 72 games pretty healthy. And that's where I think I've been a little bit of a Dennis Schroeder, Wesley Matthews, Montrezl Harrell, Marc Gasol. I like every single one of them, but they have to replace 15 wins or some number like it just to get back to par. And probably better, maybe not. I don't know. We don't know how many games each one is going to play, etc. But this is where my first quick Laker analysis is they start with losing 4 players, and now it's like, yeah, they probably replaced him. I don't know. What do you think?
I've been saying this. I think the way you put it is very good. To me, what I thought wanted for the Lakers last year was an identity to start the year of playing power basketball. Brute force power basketball on both ends. Dunks, block shots, physical presence, Frank Vogel style, Pacers basketball with more talent, maybe, right? And then after the pandemic, it was the dynamic duo. It was Davis, LeBron. And so now going into this new season, I'm sorry, if you look at the list you just provided, who are the top 2 guys in win share on that team? Of the 4 guys you mentioned.
Oh, the 4 I mentioned, it was Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee. Yep.
Right, the 2 centers.
Big time, yeah.
That's identity, right? Yeah. That's exactly my point. Now they got Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell. Gasol better on defense maybe than both guys. Montrezl maybe better, definitely better as a scorer than both guys. How do they fit, right? That's in a pandemic season now where we're playing games faster than ever. Let's practice. I would guess LeBron and Davis play a little less than normal. There's absolutely a possibility they can find an identity and let that be the connective tissue that gets them to play the way they need to play through the ups and downs of an NBA season. But there's no guarantee it'll happen. And that's my concern is Dennis Schroeder is an enigmatic player to coach. Billy Donovan unlocked it. He figured it out. Dennis was amazing last year. Really amazing. I don't think Dennis realized how good he was. Because I did a Zach Lowe podcast where I said He's the one guy the Rockets can't guard, but he didn't figure out they can't guard him for like 3 games. Too late.
Yeah. They
lost in 7. He's hard. He's impossible to stay in front of. So LeBron's got some work to do to get all these guys in the fold. Avery Bradley, by the way, hell of a defender. Danny Green, not the same defender as he used to be. Still a good defender. They lost 4 guys that impact defensively, and they were, bless you, they were an amazing team defensively. So Gasol should be an upgrade there. Montrez not. Schroeder not. It's going to be a different identity. There's going to be some work to do. But I'm not calling them the favorite. I know other people are. They're going to be right there, though, for sure. And Davis, LeBron alone guarantee that. It'll be fun to watch, for sure.
Judy, can we invite the fine Gerard Hector into our conversation? And then we should talk about the Nets while Gerard's coming on board.
I want to talk about both teams over in his neck of the woods. I want to talk about the Knicks, too.
Oh, yellow today, Gerard. I like it.
Yeah. Rocking the hoodie today.
Did you read, Gerard, the was it an ESPN about Tom Thibodeau?
It's bookmarked. I have not gotten to it yet.
Yeah, just wait. There's one thing. I'll just be real quick. The question is Tom Thibodeau the right man for the job? And in the article, Charles Way, a former running back who was then the Giants director of player development, this is NFL, was among the club officials who told the draconian Coughlin that he had to reach the team on a personal level. He advised him, let the players see the way you are with your grandchildren, which, by the way, I adored that line. I've used that before. And soon enough, Coughlin was canceling practice, taking his team bowling, establishing a leadership council in his locker room, and then ultimately beating the 18-0 Patriots in the Super Bowl, right? And then he talks about Brian Cashman and the Yankees. So what's your thoughts on Thibodeau? And he has claimed he gained some new perspective in his time off. What do you think?
Well, growing up as a Giants fan, now working in media, I don't root for teams like that anymore. But that was one of the highlights as a Giants fan, was watching the beating of the 18-0 Patriots. Look, I think that's right. Like, Thibodeau there has to be some flex in who he is, right? And some give. I think it's important to have your principles as a coach, as you do, Coach Thorpe, and you have to, because how are you going to figure out what your whole model is? But there needs to be some flexibility in there. And I think for him, that sort of authoritarian, like drill master style, you may have to ease up the gas a little bit there, right? And figure out different ways to communicate. One of the things that I know as a coach, and as a coach, Coach Thorpe, is how you communicate your message to player A is different from player B, C, D, E, and F.
Right?
Like some guy, that'll work the whole authoritarian style. Others guys, he might go into a shell and I may never get him back again. Right. So you have to be a little bit flexible. And I hope that this time away has gotten him to do that.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie can be valuable alongside KD and Kyrie, or there's just not enough time with the ball?
I do. I think so. Obviously, it's a team that I watch and cover. I actually, on a different thing, I used Karis LeVert. I said, you know what? He might be an interesting 6th man of the year.
For sure. Absolutely right.
You're $100 to just throw away. And I mean, who does, but whatever. He's got decent odds for that, because I think he will command that second unit. And we saw him lead the team when in the bubble last season, when he really was the guy against first string guys, leading them in points, rebounds, assists. And 2 years ago, when D'Angelo Russell was hurt in the playoffs, he was the guy against top line guys. So if he has to come off the bench against backups, I think he'll do really well. And he said something interesting in his post-game comments or practice comments the other day. He was asked about, how do you plan on playing next to those guys? He's like, they want me to be aggressive. It's like when I'm with the second unit, it's okay, look, drive to the basket, do this, do that. But if those guys no one's going to help off KD and Kyrie. That's not happening. So he's going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities, a lot of catch and shoot opportunities. And those are things he's ready for. So I think when he's with them to close games, he'll know what his role is then. And then when he's leading the second unit, he knows what that'll mean.
What do you think of Harden and the Nets?
I think it's a bad idea, because I think that this team right now, again, this is all assuming Kyrie, Durant are healthy, no COVID outbreaks. That's Hazel going nuts in the background.
Hazel, I was wondering. Yeah. Hi, Hazel.
I think that they, if those guys are healthy with that bench unit, they can be really good. To get Harden, you have to give up all of that. And then it's like, okay, your top 3 guys are really good, but you got nothing after that. So I think it's a bad idea. Keep the depth.
I'm a little worried about. I remember Joe Dumars told me why he got the backcourt that he got for those championship-winning Pistons teams when he was the GM. And the reason he got Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Billups was that they could both really help their team while possessing the ball for like under a second.
Yeah, they never had the ball, right?
And we could talk about that all day. But I'm like, these players that I listed, I like to have the ball for like 14 seconds or at least 4. I guess I just feel like if Kyrie's the guy over there while I'm dribbling here, the lineup data will probably, I'm suggesting, eventually show that like Joe Harris is better if he's going to stay in the corner and try to draw a defender. You know what I mean? Like it's just guys who dribble the hell out of the ball don't all take the court together and play their best, right? It's kind of a like KD and Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City where they just take turns, right? Or honestly, CJ and Dame do this a little bit too, where they're like, I'm glad you both have all these skills, but you're not both doing it at the same time, like period, just because you both need the ball.
There are ways, and Coach, you know this, right, where even if you are someone who likes the ball in his hands, you can find ways where you can still use them quite effectively, right? Like if in the 2 preseason games I watched with the Nets, Durant did bring the ball up sometimes, but he's quite accustomed to not being the ball dominant guy, right? Because you can just pass him the ball, 1 dribble, pull up, got it, right? Like, I mean, he doesn't really need a whole lot of dancing out on the perimeter to get what he needs. Kyrie a little bit differently, but at least in the early going, he's showing that, with Spencer Dinwiddie's bringing the ball up, I know what to do. Let me head to the corner and start this action. So, it's all early and it's like the first day of school. Everybody's friends and we're all good. We'll see how it is, in February and all.
Getting stuffed in a locker.
Kyrie, I remember studying him when he was in Boston. They were struggling. His usage rate was low. Like I was really surprised. He's obviously an absurdly brilliant basketball player offensively. And you can have, Gerard's point's very good. You can have LeVert as a slasher, right? Not a driver, a slasher, cutting. He's super athletic and quick at the point of attack and all that. Got great hands. He should be good at slashing. And if you only play Kyrie 32 minutes a game, which is what I think they should do for his own health reasons, because he's been injury prone too. There's 16 minutes LeVert can play off the top where he is the primary ball handler. And to Gerard's point on Durant is the rare primary scorer that doesn't have to be the primary ball handler. LeBron is a primary ball handler. Davis is a primary scorer. Durant's a primary scorer. Neither of those guys have to be primary ball handlers. So you can play Durant and LeVert with Dinwiddie, for example, and let LeVert be a primary ball handler and play with Durant. That's all well and good. To me, Nash has to be the carpenter. He's got to the chemist, right? He's got to construct this identity where it's a we, not me game. Good luck with that. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It's going to be hard. Vogel made it about force, and I think that, and because even before the pandemic, the Lakers were humming, right? They were the first seed. I give Frank Vogel great credit for building that identity and tying into, if we're not the most physical team, we're failing. And he challenged them that way, and they responded. And it played off of something that AD said before the season started. I'm holding LeBron accountable defense. He's holding me accountable. All of a sudden, you had this synergy, and it was beautiful. The Nets, we have no idea what to expect. There's no identity building in. They need to find that. But they've got all year. That's why I said if they're a top 4 seed, they're going to be dangerous come playoff time because that means they figure something out.
And I'm a little bit like, yeah, okay. Kevin Durant's been around for a long time. He can do all sorts of things off the ball. Do you know why he's a fucking Brooklyn Net? Because he got so tired of being off the ball. And you know why Kyrie requested a trade from Cleveland? Because he wanted the ball, right? Like I'm not saying this is I'm not projecting this problem. I'm saying this is how this team was constructed. Was they're like, let us do our thing, and what the opposite of their thing is, I'll just go tuck over here, and you guys be creative. That is not their thing. It's just not. It might become their thing, but that'd be new.
Why they can't. That's why they can't get Harden. You can't bring that dominant a ball handler to that. You'd have to trade LeVert for sure.
Oh yeah,
But I think it'd be a big mistake. I'm not rooting for that to happen.
Bad news.
Yeah, I agree. We're all in agreement.
It's the legal ending of the show, everybody.
See you Wednesday, right? Last show for the holiday. See you Wednesday.
Show for the holidays.
See you Wednesday. All right.